So last time in my Batman 89 review, if you haven't seen it, I'd advise watching that one first. Just go watch it now if you haven't. Go, watch it. Go and watch it. Do it. What are you, some kind of loser? Just go and watch it. I said that I was planning on watching Returns as well. The idea of having reviews for the two Burton Batman movies up on my channel felt right and satisfying. Because looking at them now, they do seem to form a kind of package deal, much in the same way that the Schumacher Batman films do. The completionist in me took over, and now here we are. Can that urge compel me to do the Schumacher films as well? Actually, honestly, maybe. I don't know. Just have to wait and see. Thinking about Batman Returns while doing the Batman 89 review, I would have assumed that I would have had a lot more negative things to say about the sequel because it famously was not as financially successful as the first movie, despite costing more, which resulted in Tim Burton and Michael Keaton leaving the franchise. It faced the now common criticism of comic book movies of having too many villains and an inability to juggle them, and it has the reputation of being a movie that was marketed to kids, but well, we'll get into that in a while, but let's just say that some people thought it was a wee bit too dark.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
But as I watched the movie, I found myself enjoying it a lot. More than the first one, more than I've ever enjoyed it before, which is weird because I watched Batman Returns hundreds of times when I was young. I found a lot more to like than to dislike, but don't worry, there's still some shit to talk about. Similar to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man run, the first movie was such a massive financial success that the studio felt comfortable giving a lot of creative freedom to the director on the second go-round. And while this resulted in a superior film and a consistent box office take for Raimi, for Burton, it resulted in mixed reviews and less money. I, however, would argue that each film improved upon its successor in terms of visuals, characterization, and story. Don't get me wrong, this is not a perfect movie by any means. I mean, it's not Nomadland.
This is so boring!
So let's get into the good, the bad, and the just fucking disgusting of Batman Returns. Again, this movie opens with the familiar first few notes of the Batman theme before quickly transitioning into horror movie territory with organ music and gothic mansions. This opening is really something to behold. Now, it's important to remember as you watch this movie, and even as you watch this review, that this film, though not exclusively marketed towards kids, did have a Happy Meal tie-in to McDonald's. I like to picture a kid aged somewhere between 5 and 10, sitting in a theater and watching Batman Returns. While I don't think that exposing children to more adult content, even if it is frightening, is necessarily a bad thing, it still brings a smile to my face thinking of the parent sitting beside them thinking, what in God's name am I exposing my child to? Case in point, this fun Batman adventure opens with a rich couple becoming so disillusioned with parenthood that they come to the difficult decision of putting their disfigured child up for adoption. Nah, only joking. They're so disgusted by his monstrous appearance, they come to the obvious solution of wheeling him out into the snow and dropping him into the sewer like he's fucking Moses down the Nile. Maybe these two had a few too many martinis. Then again, I'm not sure how much we can trust the judgment of Pee Wee Herman at the best of times.
Pee Wee? The Roxy's potential in you.
But good for him for making it so rich, though. Once again, Burton knows how to keep the makeup and effects hidden to enhance the impact of the eventual reveal.
Hide.
Though I always wanted to see what Penguin looked like as a toddler, and also, what exactly does he do to that cat? I always assumed he ate it or something, but given his interactions with Catwoman later on, I'm starting to think it was something even less savory. The Batman theme plays over the opening credits, and it's still great. Maybe even a bit better. Elfman added a lot of vocalization to the soundtrack. The music this time around is a much richer experience. The whole thing is more whimsical than the first one. Is that the right word? I don't know. I'm not exactly a music guy. But it complements the winter aesthetic perfectly and is reminiscent of Burton's other winter-themed films, Edward Scissorhands from the year before and Nightmare Before Christmas the year after. Every character gets their own theme, and I especially like the tragic tone of a lot of the tracks. It matches the characters' backstories and foreshadows where they'll end up by the ending. Land on any scene that has music, and I guarantee the soundtrack is doing something interesting. Most importantly, this time around, there is no Prince on the soundtrack. We hear a little bit of Super Freak by Rick James, which doesn't last long, thank God. And speaking of interesting, Gotham City is at least 10 times better than the first movie. Gotham in the Snow is definitely my favorite Gotham. This time it isn't grungy or dirty or unpleasant to look at. It's still giant and gothic and expressionist. Actually, it's even more so those things. And this is so perfectly a city that Batman would fight crime in, but I also want to go there and walk around in it. Unfortunately, some of the problems of the first movie carry over to this one, so again, I must ask, Where the fuck is everybody? I counted. There's roughly 100 people in this crowd shot, including a man on a horse for some reason. Gotham City is, according to some website I just looked up, slightly larger than New York City. This is the once-in-a-year tree lighting ceremony, and this is the crowd that showed up. Either Gotham is the most apathetic city on Earth, or the Joker killed more people than I thought in that gas attack from the first movie. Tim Burton just has this inexplicable aversion to extras, or he just doesn't want all these pesky, breathing humans hiding the art direction with their walking corpses. I mean, look at these people. They're not wearing crazy costumes, they don't have any birth defects or facial scarring. However, Burton makes up for it with a variety of attractive and memorable interiors, all of which are an improvement over the first movie. A shady businessman's office goes from looking like this to looking like this. The villain's lair goes from looking like this to looking like this. A crowded office goes from this to this. Wayne Manor goes from looking like this to this. And the Batcave goes from looking like this to looking like this. And a party goes from looking like this to looking like this. Gotham is just much more pleasant to look at than the first. Could it be a conscious decision to show Batman's positive effect on the city? Or is it just because they changed production designers from Anton Furst to Bo Welch? Yeah, that was probably it. The cinematography is a vast improvement over the last movie. I can only assume that a change in camera and film stock has taken place as everything looks sharper and cleaner. God, I love the look of movies in the 90s. There are also stronger color choices being made, with night scenes given a noticeably blue tint, which normally would put me off, but it works with the snowy, cold atmosphere of a Gotham in winter. The camera placement and movement feels so much more confident and dynamic, which leads to an overall rewarding visual experience. Some of these shots are actually pretty great. And I have to give a shout out to the costume department for Catwoman's costume, Penguin's suit, not this though, and the bat suit, which is noticeably better looking than the first movie, but mostly because of this grey and black striped suit that Christopher Walken rocks in this scene. I really, really want that suit. I'm not sure that I have the swagger to pair it with a bow tie and a cigar as a pocket square, but by God, I would be willing to try to make that shit work. The first movie was a hard act to follow because of one massive element, and that was Nicholson's Joker. Some might say that Jack Nicholson's Joker stole the show, but I think it would be more accurate to say that he's lucky he didn't end up in a wheelchair with a permanently crushed spine from carrying the entire show on his shoulders like he's fucking Atlas or something, or one of the city-sized statues from the Schumacher Batman movies. By the way, the forerunners of those statues that were deemed to be so very, very homoerotic can be seen prominently in a few shots here. This time our main villain is the Penguin, and Danny DeVito is the man behind the makeup. And before I get into my feelings about what might be the biggest mistake this movie makes, I have to say, this was, is, and always will be one of the most impressive makeup jobs ever put to film. Look at this guy's face. Other than the height, he looks nothing like the actor playing him, and yet he looks completely convincing because the prosthetics aren't so thick that we can't still see DeVito emoting underneath them. Stan Winston was the man. That is a face even a mother couldn't love. But the greatest makeup in the world can't turn this ugly duckling into a swan. By which I mean, he might look awesome, but I've always found this character and performance to be very disappointing, and I still do. For me, the Penguin, like so many other things, was at his best in Batman the Animated Series, where he was, among other things, most importantly, a sophisticate. He had taste and decorum, he had style, he was a snob. This Penguin is not those things. This guy is a dirty birdie. He's filthy in appearance and personality. Let's start with his appearance. There are times when he looks perfect. He's got the black suit with the top hat and the umbrella. It's not a tuxedo, but it works. We even get to see him wearing a monocle, and I love it. He looks fantastic. But then we've got the onesie, this skin-tight, pale, damp-looking, pathetic, depressing, embarrassing, unforgiving abomination of a wardrobe choice. Any style or class or coolness or even sheer fucking dignity gets drop-kicked out the fucking window every time we see him waddling around in that thing. And no, putting a fur coat over it doesn't help. If anything, it makes him look even more naked than without it. And then we have the, I don't know, what do we call this black crap dribbling down his chin, coating his teeth, and flying out of his mouth every time he shouts, which is a lot. The word that comes to mind is sludge. Why is that there? Penguins don't have that. I mean, do they? I don't know that much about penguins, but I get the feeling that they wouldn't be considered so cute if they looked like black blood was pouring out of their beaks at all times. So most of the time he looks repulsive and pathetic, and sometimes he looks repulsive and kinda cool. How about the performance? Let's start with the voice.
Hi, Max, remember me? I'm Fred's hand.
It's okay. I would prefer it if it was a bit more upper class and posh, but it works much better than some of the Penguin portrayals in recent years, like the Arkham games where someone got the bright idea that he should be a Cockney Englishman, and this new Penguin Colin Farrell's playing, who sounds more like Polly Walnuts than anything else.
Oh, my check's coming yet?
Whoa, take it easy, sweetheart.
DeVito's performance is clearly somewhat inspired by Burgess Meredith of the '66 Batman show, similar to Nicholson and Cesar Romero, but instead of the quacking laugh, DeVito just does a lot of grunting. It's very off-putting. I wouldn't call it a fatal flaw, but the absolute biggest missed opportunity is failing to make DeVito's Penguin sympathetic. I say failed because it seems like there was some effort put into achieving this effect. Elfman's score for a lot of the Penguin scenes has a sad, tragic quality, and his eventual death scene plays out in such a way that Burton seems intent on trying to make the audience well up with tears at the passing of this misunderstood soul. There's just one problem. There is nothing sympathetic or likable about this guy at all, and it's not because he looks like a rancid Humpty Dumpty. If anything, his appearance is the most likable thing about him. Let's get into our villain's evil scheme and prepare yourselves, folks, because it is a doozy. After the prologue that showed him being thrown into the sewers and found by, sewer penguins, it could happen, I guess. We find that the Penguin Man has become a Bigfoot-esque urban legend, or at least I would call it that if it was in some tabloid rag and not on the front page of the Gotham Globe. Jesus, did Alexander Knox end up the editor of that place? Oh, I forgot to mention, no comic relief this time. Big improvement.
No, Mr. Stag. Mr. called Jaja Binks. Mr. your humble servant.
So the Penguin's living in the sewers and he sends his gang of circus folk to cause a big ruckus at the tree lighting ceremony to distract everyone, including Batman, while he kidnaps and blackmails a wealthy industrialist into helping him. See, he says that he wants to live above ground. I'm not sure why, this place looks fucking sweet. And he wants to find his parents in order to something. He stages a kidnapping of the mayor's baby so he can heroically save it, which endears him to the people of Gotham, including a Mr. Bruce Wayne. He then spends some time in the City Hall of Records, perusing birth certificates and making a big list of names. How very Christmassy. Turns out his parents are dead, but that's okay because the industrialist guy has his own agenda. Surprise, surprise. And he convinces the Penguin to run for mayor of Gotham. Penguin uses his gang to cause some mayhem to make the current mayor look bad, which is what puts him in conflict with Batman. He teams up with Catwoman to frame and kill Batman, which only partly works. Batman exposes his villainy to the people of Gotham, who turn on him and force him back into the sewers, and this is where things get even crazier. See, Penguin knew who his parents were all along, and they were dead the whole time. He just needed an excuse to access that records building because he wanted the names of the firstborn sons of Gotham. Him becoming mayor was him getting distracted. This was his original plan. He was a firstborn son of Gotham, and he was abandoned into the sewers. So his plan is, so when you hear this, you're gonna love it. His plan is to send his gang out that night with the names of all the children to, you know what, I'll just let him tell it because it's really quite something.
Tonight, while their parents party, they'll be dreaming away in their safe cribs, and we will snatch them, carry them into the sewer, and toss them into a deep, dark, watery grave.
Jesus.
So it turns out that the names from earlier was like the opposite of Schindler's List. As far as villainous schemes go, this one is pretty wild. I didn't even need to play that clip. The movie already knows that this is too much.
Penguin? I mean, killing sleeping children. Isn't that a little,
No, it's a lot!
Penguin uses this train to transport all the kids and provide yet more evidence that Gotham City has no fucking people. You are going to transport all the firstborn sons of Gotham in that thing? But never fear, audience member, Batman arrives in time to save the kids and even sends a letter to Penguin to let him know what happened. Aw, people don't really take the time to send letters these days. It really is a lost art form. Hold on, is that Vincent Schiavelli? Does Burton just get his villain casting inspiration by watching One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest over and over again? And if so, where's Brad Dourif, Christopher Lloyd, and the Chief? And it's not over yet, for you see, Penguin had a plan B, which involves sending an army of penguins with goggles and rockets strapped to their backs to the center of Gotham and just blow the place up. Now that's just fun. As is the General Patton speech he gives the penguins first. What he actually says in this scene went completely over my head when I was young. Essentially, he says the same thing that Thanos does at the end of Endgame. I was only going to murder the firstborn sons of Gotham, but because you wouldn't just let me do what I wanted to do, now I'm going to kill everybody. So it's actually your fault, Batman. Congratulations. What he says is that he's not going to discriminate between birth order and gender anymore, but then he just has to make it weird by saying this.
With their erogenous souls blown sky high!
If watching Friends has taught me anything, it's that erogenous zones are those parts of the body that excite sexual feelings when touched or stimulated. So yeah, picture those things all blown up. Who the fuck wrote that line?
Shame on you.
You know, it was probably the same guy who looked at the previous versions of the Penguin from the comic in the 60s show and said, yeah, that's good, but let's make him a creepy, horny, groping, leering sex piggy. He wants to fuck Catwoman. He wants to fuck Jan Hooks. He wants to fuck Batman. Okay, no, maybe he doesn't want to fuck Batman. I'm just kidding about that. Listen to some of these lines.
Just the pussy I've been looking for. I'd like to fill her void. I'll warm you. Teach you my French flipper trick. Scented or unscented? Let's consummate naked sexual charisma. That's the biggest I've ever seen.
You know how I said he gets distracted when the industrialist guy convinces him to run for mayor? How does he persuade him exactly?
Unlimited poontang.
That is Academy Award-winning actor Christopher Walken in a combed white shock wig telling a literal fucking monster that he should run for mayor using the words unlimited poontang in a Batman movie with a Happy Meal promotion. Sweet, gentle Jesus. I'm all for characters in movies acting like human beings and wanting to fuck each other, but Penguin's libido was a mistake. All this stuff, the grunting, the deviancy, the planned infanticide, the fact that every time he talks about his backstory in a sad voice, he's clearly bullshitting everyone to manipulate them, makes this Penguin entirely unlikable and unsympathetic. And when he dies, all I can think is good riddance, no matter how sad the music is. There's a scene that implies that he used to murder children while traveling around the country as part of a circus freak show. If you're looking for sympathy, there's no coming back from that. Could it have worked? Sure. With a few adjustments, I think it could have been much better. Lose the killing the babies thing, lose the sex offender stuff, and have him be a bit more charming and, well, human. A discarded story concept was that Walken and DeVito would be brothers. They should have went with that. Penguin is angry at his parents, his situation in the world. His plan is to get some dramatic revenge, but not to kill children, for God's sake. Maybe just keep the penguins with rockets gag. He needs the help of a wealthy industrialist for some reason, and for his own personal reasons, he kidnaps and blackmails his brother, played by Christopher Walken, who was not deformed and ended up a successful but shady businessman and not a sewer-dwelling goblin. Walken sees an opportunity to advance his own plans, convinces the Penguin to run for mayor. Things move along roughly the same way as in the actual movie, but as Penguin gains acceptance, he gives up on his revenge and believes he's bonding with the brother he doesn't know is just using him. He still clashes with Batman because he's using his gang to help him win the election, teams up with Catwoman, maybe gets a little crush on her. It would also be a good idea to have the Penguin interact a bit with Bruce Wayne, seeing as both of them come from the same blue blood background. Shrek even makes a reference to this.
Shows what you know, mister. To the man born with a silver spoon. If his parents hadn't 86'd him, you two might have been bunkies at prep school.
They might have had an interesting dynamic, considering they both lost their parents when they were children in contrasting but similarly traumatic ways. Batman causes the city to turn against the Penguin. Walken reveals he was only using him. Catwoman likes Batman and not him. This is when he gets angry, gives up on trying to assimilate, and falls back on his revenge plot. And that's it. But the key is to make him more likable. He's not a good guy, but we want to see him get the better of the assholes of Gotham who treat him like shit because of the way he looks. Something closer to the Birds of a Feather episode of the animated series. He tries to be a part of the above ground world, but he eventually feels unaccepted and becomes a monster again. I would have thought a concept like this would be right in Burton's wheelhouse. He's not exactly a stranger to stories about sympathetic monsters, and this one should have been easy. He does a much better job with Catwoman. Don't get me wrong, it's still flawed, but by the end of the movie, I did actually care about this character. I can find no fault in the performance of the actress or the look of the costume and makeup. Michelle Pfeiffer is fantastic in this role, and it ain't just because she's like the hottest thing ever both in and out of that costume. I mean, my God. What a costume it is, though. It's an outfit that's so clearly a classic Catwoman costume, but also fits with Burton's artistic flair with all the different segments stitched together and the white thread poking out so it looks both striking and homemade. Plus, making it shiny was a stroke of genius. It's the costume equivalent of spraying streets with water to make the lighting more impactful and stylized. Her storyline is the basic nervous loser character goes through some significant or traumatic event and comes out a confident badass on the other side, only here it hadn't become cliched yet, and this trope usually comes with some kind of obsession with the hero which eventually turns into conflict. Here, that aspect is much more interesting because he's also totally into it, because yeah, how the fuck could he not be? He's only human. It also works because she's more sympathetic. She's kinda nuts, but it's understandable, and in this movie, who isn't? And she has a clear goal, revenge against one guy. She's introduced as Christopher Walken's secretary. She's awkward and timid. She talks to herself a lot about how she's so pathetic and she's perpetually unlucky in love because men just aren't interested. Somehow. I mean, I know she doesn't look her best, but come on now. You can't just hide beauty like that under terrible hair and terrible fashion sense. She gets no respect at work.
Afraid we haven't properly housebroken Ms. Kyle.
Although to be fair to Max Schreck, she is a fucking terrible secretary. She doesn't seem to understand how to serve coffee. She forgets to give her boss his speech before he has to speak to the people of Gotham, all 107 of them, and she interrupts his meeting with the mayor to make a suggestion that she doesn't actually say. Now, I don't want what I'm going to say next to be taken as some kind of endorsement of defenestration. I've always wanted an excuse to use that word, because pushing people out of windows is wrong. Most of the time. But if ever there was a character practically begging to be murdered, it's Selina Kyle in this scene. For some reason, she goes to the office late at night, guesses her boss's password to take a gander at his secret files, discovers that his plans are of the megalomaniacal supervillainous variety and that he's basically Lex Luthor, and then she, unprompted, tells him what she's discovered. Lady, you might look like a dork, but you are a fucking imbecile. This wasn't even an astronomically misguided attempt to get him to do the right thing. She just continuously blurts it out like she's Homer Simpson.
Oh, now wait, nobody can be as dumb as all that.
Let this be a lesson. If you discover that your creepy boss is a criminal, just keep your mouth shut until you get to the police station. Especially if that boss wears gloves at all times. It means he's ready to murder at a moment's notice. That being said, he's not very good at murder. For one thing, she doesn't die, but he just pushes her out the window and walks away like, not my problem. This is his office, and it's not like he calls some guy who deals with situations like this to come and clean it up. If she had died, he'd be arrested in a heartbeat. Oh, officers, I don't know what happened. It must have been suicide. By taking a running jump backwards through the window of your office right around the same time someone uses your personal password to access a computer right next to the window. Nice try, buddy, but I've seen A View to a Kill. You're definitely the murderer. Take him away, boys. I like the subtle and ambiguous nature of Catwoman's power set. It reminds me of Unbreakable. Is he super strong, or is he just kinda strong? Did the cats lick and bite her back to life, or did she just get lucky and all those awnings broke her fall? Does she have super reflexes, or was she once a gymnast or something? Does she really have 9 lives? Or does she just keep getting lucky and surviving? We never find out, and that's the reason all the weird aspects of her character work. She wants revenge on Shrek for killing her, starting with blowing up his department store in a fantastic moment.
Meow.
After this, she gets distracted from her revenge by her love-hate relationship with Batman after he brutally disfigures her arm with acid, but then saves her life because he's a swell guy. But then he knocks her off the roof when she sticks him with her claws. Burton also had the good sense to set almost all of the interactions between Batman and Catwoman on rooftops because, and be honest, anytime you picture these two together in your head, they're always on a rooftop, although it's usually a little less violent than this. The relationship is sometimes hostile, sometimes steamy, and always fun to watch. Jesus, Burton's Batman villains are so distractible. It takes until the end of the movie for Selina to get back on track to take her revenge. She's like shiny, sexy, latex-covered Hamlet. But let's not forget Selina Kyle's relationship with Bruce Wayne, which runs parallel to the Batman-Catwoman one. Rewatching this now, this is my favorite story element of the movie. I mean, except for the drowning the babies in the sewers business, obviously. When I hear people say that Michael Keaton is their favorite Batman, I have to assume that they're talking about the Keaton Batman from this movie, because he's great.
Eat floor. High fiber.
It's still unmistakably the guy he was in the first movie, but I feel like we get to see more of him, he has more personality, and he's a lot more fun. At least he looks like he's having more fun, especially in his scenes as Bruce Wayne. And why wouldn't he? He gets to look at / make out with Michelle Pfeiffer and get paid to do it. He still completely brings it when he needs to be serious and intimidating.
Shut up, you're going to jail.
But he also gets to show his range as a dramatic actor. He's always been great, but the writing in the first movie didn't exactly give him the opportunity to show that off. In my review for the first movie, I said I didn't like how Bruce Wayne blends in instead of having a real presence. I wanted to see Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, the businessman, and we got that here. His scene with Christopher Walken has some of my favorite dialogue in the movie.
You think you could go 15 rounds with Mohammed Shrek?
Although I do find Bruce's lack of tact in this scene very out of place. He says he's not going to support Shrek's plans, which is all he had to do really. But then he starts just accusing Shrek of working with the Penguin and, ooh, he knows that the Penguin controls the circus gang, but he can't prove it yet. Shrek says he knows nothing about it, he denies it, but what he should have said was, that's an awfully strange thing to say during a business proposal meeting. What do you mean you'll prove it? You're a rich playboy. You're not a detective. It's not like you're Batman or something. You're acting very suspiciously, Bruce, and don't think I haven't noticed that your eyebrows look just like the bat signal. And while I've got you here, and we're on the subject of Batman, what's the deal with those 2 giant giant bat signals you have on the roof of your mansion. And how the hell do they work anyway? And then there's Bruce and Selina. There's so much chemistry between these two, and the writing in their scenes together has real humor and charm. The connection between these two is made so much stronger because they don't treat it like it's this epic love affair. They're two people who recognize a kindred spirit in each other. They're like, maybe this could be something great, and they don't have sex, thank fuck. That would have obliterated all that juicy sexual tension. The scene where they meet in Shrek's office is so funny to me. From Shrek's point of view, this woman has just appeared back from the dead after being murdered by him, and he can't confront her because there's someone else there, and she's verbally toying with him. And right in the middle of this, there's Bruce Wayne with a goofy grin on his face. Not a, wow, she's really pretty kind of grin. More like a, he's never even seen a woman before, and every word out of her mouth is the most amazing thing he's ever heard kind of grin. I love it. But not as much as I love this scene, the masquerade ball where the two people who usually spend their nights dressing up don't wear costumes and dance. Could it be that they're actually in costume because Bruce Wayne and Selina are the disguises and Batman and Catwoman are who they really are? Is that obvious? Yes. Is it a little heavy-handed with the subtext? You betcha. Do I care?
Nope.
Because this scene is the best, and these two are so good in it. They're dancing, laughing, crying, kissing, struggling. She pulls out a gun at one point. It's a roller coaster of emotion. And it ends with my favorite version of the realizing the other person's secret identity moment. And they both realize at the same time with a payoff to a line of dialogue set up earlier.
Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
But a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.
A kiss can be even deadlier.
Chills. Actual chills. Look at my arms. Goosebumps every time. The song playing during this scene is Face to Face by Susie and the Banshees, and it actually fits really well. Probably because Danny Elfman helped write the thing. It's actually a pretty good song. In the climax, when she's about to get her revenge and Bruce tries to talk her down and ripping off his mask like it's made of fucking cheese and asking her to just come home with him, the music's beautiful, and I love the way Pfeiffer delivers this line.
I would love to live with you in your castle. Forever, just like in a fairy tale.
But if you've been listening to her tragic theme music, you know this wasn't going to have a happy ending. She refuses, bitch scratches him, gets shot a few times, and gets her revenge by electrocuting herself and Shrek with a taser, which was very nicely set up earlier in the movie. Bruce is sad about Selina's death, but gets a hint that she might still be alive, which is sadly ruined when the audience gets total confirmation that she's still alive. Why? All you needed was that great tease with the shadow. Apparently the studio wanted to leave the door open for a Catwoman spin-off, which would not have worked with this version of Catwoman, even if Pfeiffer played her. And I'm not just saying that because the Halle Berry Catwoman was a fucking cinematic war crime. The whole Bruce-Selina relationship is great, but I think it could have used just one more scene of them together before they have this cozy date by the fire. The date gets physical really fast, so I think a bit more back and forth before this scene would have been good. But this thing where they're trying to hide the injuries they unknowingly gave each other is a lot of fun. Although, Jesus Christ, her arm is fucked. Don't mess with this Batman, he'll melt your flesh. For never was a story of more woe than this of Selina Kyle and her Batman. Ah, fuck, rhyming's really hard. Why is rhyming so hard? At a certain point, while making this review and writing the name Shrek over and over, this was all I could think about.
Ogres are like onions. End of story. Bye-bye. See you later.
As a nice little nod to German expressionistic influences on the production design of the film, Christopher Walken's character is called Max Schreck after the actor who played Count Orlok in Nosferatu. And I like him a lot in this part. It's a very Christopher Walken performance, and he gets to say a lot of fun things.
Frankly, I cringe, Mr. Mayor.
I wish I could hand out world peace and unconditional love.
What did curiosity do to the cat?
Give the Constitution a rest, okay? It's Christmas. Bruce, shame on you. Women, nothing surprises me, Chip. Who'd have thought Selina had a brain to damage? I got better fish to fry.
I don't know what you want, but I know I can get it for you with a minimum of fuss.
You're fired.
Bruce Wayne, why are you dressed up like Batman? Yawn.
I think it's a strong story element that his nefarious scheme ties Batman, the Penguin, and Catwoman together indirectly, but the movie doesn't even seem interested in what he's doing. Shrek is a rich business tycoon with a roided out son, he's very famous apparently, and also incredibly shady. His goal is to build a power plant, but no one will help him or approve the plant, not the mayor, not Bruce Wayne, no one. So when the Penguin comes along to blackmail him with evidence of his misdeeds, Shrek comes to the conclusion that his best course of action can only be to have this deformed, sewer-dwelling circus freak show alumnus run for mayor, even though there isn't even an election, so he can give Shrek the permission to build his power plant. It's an unusual strategy to say the least, but what does he want the power plant for? Bruce and the mayor tell us
Gotham City has a power surplus.
So we've got enough power to get us into the middle of the next century.
Selena discovers that the plant would
Instead of generating power, it'll sort of be sucking power from Gotham City.
and gets pushed out a window for her trouble. Okay, but why does he want to drain the power from Gotham? Does he want to sell it back and make a huge profit? I can't see that working. The point is that we never find out why. He talks about this being his legacy and it's for his gigantic son, but that's a little vague. Once the Penguin gets his mayoral bid fucked up by Batman, Shrek's just like, oh well, and we never hear about the power plant again. For such a talked about plot element, its lack of realization is strange, and the story is weaker for it. But here's some fun facts. The guy who played Shrek's son, Andrew Bernarski, would go on to play Zangief in Street Fighter and Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I would have shown a clip of Bernarski as Leatherface, but wouldn't you rather watch some Jessica Biel from the same movie? And I find it pretty funny that he does this little Walken impersonation for this part.
Dad, Mr. Mayor, it's time to go down and bring joy to the masses.
The Penguin and Catwoman joining forces to turn the city against Batman is very Batman 66, but not in a bad way. It's fun, as is their plan. Get the mayor to redo the tree lighting to draw a crowd, kidnap the chick who's supposed to do the actual pushing of the big button, and implicate Batman in her disappearance. When Batman comes to save her, break into the Batmobile and turn it into a remote control car that can cause some destruction to make Batman look worse, and for good measure, kill the Ice Princess in a way that makes it look like Batman did it. They celebrate and Penguin's like, okay, time to fuck. And she's like, ha, as if, and he doesn't take this well at all. Now I don't want what I say next to be taken as some kind of endorsement of, well, whatever the technical term is for hooking a woman to a flying umbrella, because attaching any person to a flying umbrella is wrong. But she did kinda lead him on. Just picture it. After this whole thing goes down, Penguin goes to talk to his best friend about this new girl in his life. So how are things going with what's-her-face? You know, the cat lady. She's not a cat lady, she's a cat woman. I hooked her to the flying umbrella. You hooked her to the flying umbrella? I hooked her to the flying umbrella. But why? Because she was a tease. Oh, come on, how big a tease could she have been? Okay, so I come home after a long day of campaigning and she's in my apartment, lying on my bed. You should have seen what she was wearing. It was the sexiest thing I've ever seen. It was coming apart at the seams, and she's writhing around all suggestively, and she's letting me smell her feet, and the whole time she's giving me these bedroom eyes. Whoa. Then, get this, she takes my bird out of its cage and puts it in her mouth. Why the hell did she do that? Who knows? To impress me, I guess. Wow. That's a good way to get bird shit all over your tongue right there. So what did you do? What could I do? She's some kind of kinky sex freak. I thought she was gonna eat my bird. So I threatened to stick, my thing in her pussy. And she lets the bird go, and then, get this, are you listening? She starts licking herself right in front of me. Then we team up to defeat Batman, and it went pretty well, so I tried to take things to the next level, and then all of a sudden she wants nothing to do with me. Wow, she is a tease. Well, I showed her. Hey, we're nearly at the end. Time for me to give some random observations and opinions about Batman Returns.
We're in the end game now.
Why does Alfred serve Bruce vichyssoise in this scene? I like it because it's one of those pointless, quirky moments that you remember. And now I'll always remember that
It's vichyssoise. It's supposed to be cold.
But he's working in a cave in the dead of winter. Give the guy something hot to eat, for Christ's sake. Jesus, Alfred. I love how dumb the Ice Princess is.
Tree lights off, and then I push the button. Oh, no, wait.
She's also too stupid to know that she should be scared of this guy when he suddenly appears in the mirror behind her like she's in a fucking horror movie. She thinks that this is a camera, and when she's set free by Catwoman, she doesn't just hop down from a very precarious position she finds herself in, and you just know whoever wrote her death scene did so while chuckling mightily to himself. After the Penguin kills the Ice Princess and sets the bats on the crowd, Batman just makes himself look more guilty by soaring menacingly over the crowd. I'm glad they included Penguin's trick umbrellas. and I've always thought that the flying one was awesome. I love Walken's responses when the Penguin's blackmailing him, like the Penguin's some kind of cop and he doesn't want to legally incriminate himself.
They could have come from anywhere. If there were such documents, that's not an admission. I would have seen to it they were shredded.
And how this is his go-to response when someone asks him the whereabouts of someone he's murdered.
I believe he's on extended vacation, but my assistant is using a vacation time. Is that why you cut short your vacation?
Danny DeVito is pretty good in this scene, but this shit is so funny.
Hiya, Max, remember me? I'm Fred's hand.
This computerized Batarang is also awesome, but Batman should have punted that little dog and taken back his shit. The entrance to the Batcave is so cool, with the switch in the fish tank and the Iron Maiden with the slide inside. I mean, fuck being Batman, just ride that shit all day long. I like this line.
Why is there always someone who brings eggs and tomatoes to a speech?
Batman's about-face from sympathizing with Penguin to distrusting him takes less than 2 minutes of screen time with no apparent reason for it. Me and Alfred, we're like,
why are you now determined to prove that this Penguin is not what he seems?
The movie should actually give us a reason, though. I think this is Pfeiffer's sexiest look in the whole movie. Is that weird? I mean, who's your hairdresser? This guy? It's massively distracting to have shadows appear without a light source to make them possible, but I don't care because I think it looks cool. This scene is so funny and I had no memory of seeing it before.
It's not even accurate. Batman blows it. He probably saved millions of dollars in property damage alone.
It also includes this fun reference to the first movie, which I also missed before.
It's gonna be a hot time on the cool town tonight.
Oh, there'll be a hot time in the old town tonight.
Let's not forget about all the little dumb things that don't quite ruin the movie, but make you question the filmmaker's good sense. Penguin's tiny coin-operated Batmobile machine that he must have stolen from the front of a supermarket. Penguin somehow having access to the blueprints to the Batmobile. Penguin's terrible pun.
You didn't invite me, so I crashed!
The sound department using the exact same stock gasping sound in 2 different scenes. Batman should not be able to just punch through the floor of the Batmobile. If he wanted to knock that thing off, he should have just done this. Batman's black eye paint mysteriously vanishing when he rips off his licorice mask, and the disc players in the Batcave with the bat symbol on them are kinda dumb. And that is Batman Returns. Is it better than the first one? Yes, absolutely it is. The first one had Jack Nicholson and no one was ever going to top him, but Returns as an overall richer and more enjoyable movie, from the cinematography, the music, the art direction and the costumes, to the side characters, the performances, character motivations and dialogue. This is a crazy movie. So much about it is pretty bonkers, but there's so much to love. This was smack bang in the middle of peak Tim Burton, and his taste and sensibilities are unmistakable and all over this movie, which is something to be celebrated given recent Tim Burton. It might not be a movie for everybody, but if you like mutant bird people driving giant rubber duckies with machine gun umbrellas, biting people's noses while running for mayor and trying to fuck a psychotic woman in feline-themed fetish gear who has issues with her boss, so she does this to him, while her recently dumped ex looks on in a cowless superhero costume, then do I have the movie for you. Thank you very much for watching my Batman Returns review. Please like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, leave a comment down below. Hopefully I'll be back soon with more reviews, and I will see you then.
Security? Who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? I'm sitting there working and I turn around, there she is. Oh, hi Vic, come on in.
Fucking Alfred, the worst.
I was their number 1 son, and they treated me like number 2.